"You're like a brother to me," she said for years. So I introduced her to my new girlfriend. Now she's the one begging for a crumb of my attention. The first time Ava called me her brother, I laughed. We were 19, sitting on the hood of my beat-up Honda outside our community college after a night class. We'd been friends for almost a year by then. We'd met because she accidentally spilled an entire iced coffee on my laptop in the library and cried so hard that I ended up comforting her. That was Ava. Beautiful, chaotic, hilarious Ava. "You know you're basically family at this point, right?" she said, nudging my shoulder. "Like, if anyone asks, you're my brother." I remember smiling and saying, "That's cool." What I didn't say was that I'd spent the last 6 months developing the biggest crush of my life. At the time, I figured brother wasn't a permanent label. I was wrong. 3 months later, I finally worked up the courage to ask her out. Nothing dramatic, just coffee. She looked genuinely sad. "Oh my God, Noah," she said softly. "No, I mean, I love you, obviously. But not like that. You're my person. Your family." Then she hugged me. That hug felt like a funeral. I told myself it was fine. People get rejected every day. Besides, losing Ava completely sounded worse than pretending I was okay. So I stayed. And honestly, for a while, it worked. We became inseparable. We talked every day. We had movie nights every Friday. We knew each other's coffee orders, childhood traumas, favorite songs, and every embarrassing secret imaginable. Everyone assumed we were dating. We weren't. Ava made sure everyone knew that. "You," she'd laugh whenever someone asked. "No offense, Noah, but he's literally my brother." Every single time. The weird part? Ava dated constantly. There was Tyler, the aspiring DJ, Marcus, the personal trainer, Ben, the finance bro, Ethan, the tattoo artist, Chris, the bartender. There were more, honestly. Every relationship followed the exact same cycle. Ava would disappear for a month while she was obsessed with the new guy. Then she'd call me sobbing at 2 in the morning because they'd broken up, and I'd show up, every time. One night, around 3 years into our friendship, she called me crying because Marcus had cheated on her. I drove 40 minutes across town with milkshakes and tissues. The second she opened the door, she practically collapsed into my arms. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered. I remember thinking, "You could date me." Instead, I said, "You've got me." Looking back, that might have been my first mistake. My second mistake was ignoring what happened whenever another girl entered my life. Take Sophie. I met Sophie at work. We hit it off immediately. Nothing serious, but we'd gone on 4 dates. The moment Ava found out, she became weird. Suddenly, she needed me constantly. "Can you come help me move furniture? Can you pick me up from the mechanic? Can you come over?" I had a terrible day. If I said I already had plans with Sophie, Ava would go quiet. "Wow," she'd say. "Guess your new girlfriend is more important." Girlfriend. Sophie wasn't even my girlfriend. The guilt always worked. A month later, Sophie ended things. "You seem nice," she told me. "But honestly, it feels like you're already in a relationship with someone else." I thought she was overreacting. Turns out she wasn't the only one. A year later, I dated a girl named Jenna. Jenna lasted 6 weeks. One night she asked, "Why does Ava call you 14 times a day?" "Because we're best friends." "Why does she hate me?" "She doesn't hate you." Jenna laughed. "Your friend literally introduced herself by saying, 'Don't break his heart because I had him first.'" I froze. Ava was joking. Was she? At the time, I defended Ava. I always defended Ava. Jenna broke up with me 2 weeks later. Her exact words were, "Call me when you figure out whether you're dating me or your best friend." I was furious. At Jenna, not Ava. Because admitting everyone else saw something I didn't would have forced me to ask questions I didn't want answered. So life continued. Ava dated. I stayed single. Ava cried. I listened. Ava called me family. I believed her. Then, 6 years after we met, everything changed because of a spilled drink. Again. I was 26 and grabbing coffee before work when someone crashed into me hard enough to send my iced latte flying all over both of us. "Oh my God." I looked up. The woman standing in front of me looked horrified. She had dark curly hair, oversized glasses, and coffee literally dripping off her sleeve. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Please don't sue me. I have, like, $37 in my checking account." I laughed. "Funny. That's exactly how I met my best friend." She blinked. "You regularly get assaulted by beverages?" "Apparently." She laughed. And that was it. That was how I met Lily. We ended up sitting together while waiting for replacement drinks. 1 coffee turned into 2 hours. 2 hours turned into exchanging numbers. Numbers turned into dates. And for the first time in years, something felt easy. Lily didn't play games. She didn't disappear for days. She communicated. She asked questions. She remembered things. Most importantly, being around her felt peaceful. 3 months later, I realized something terrifying. I was falling in love. Really falling. Not the fantasy version I'd spent years carrying around for Ava. The real thing. Naturally, I wanted my best friend to meet her. Huge mistake. The dinner started perfectly. Ava hugged me, smiled at Lily, and said, "I've heard so much about you." Lily smiled warmly. "I've heard a lot about you, too." For the first 30 minutes, everything seemed normal. Then Ava started telling stories. Embarrassing stories. The time I got food poisoning on vacation, the time I cried during a Pixar movie, the time I accidentally sent a shirtless gym picture to my aunt. Lily laughed politely. I laughed too, but something felt off. Then Ava smiled and said, "Honestly, Noah's lucky I trained him. Before me, he was hopeless." Lily looked confused. "Trained him?" "You know?" Ava laughed. "Basic human interaction. He's basically my little brother." Little brother. For some reason, hearing it that night bothered me more than usual. I noticed Lily's smile tighten. The conversation recovered. Barely. As we drove home, Lily stared out the window quietly. Finally, she asked, "Can I say something without you getting defensive?" I laughed. "Probably not." She looked at me. "I don't think she sees you as a brother at all." I almost swerved into another lane. "What? Your friend? Ava?" "Yeah." I laughed immediately. "You've met her once." "I know. She's called me her brother for 6 years." Lily nodded. I heard her say it. So? So, I've never looked at my brother the way she looks at you." A chill ran down my spine. "What does that even mean?" Lily hesitated. "Forget it." "No, seriously." She sighed. "She looks like she's waiting for you to choose her." I shook my head instantly. "Trust me, that's impossible." Lily didn't argue. She just looked strangely sad. I should have listened. Because less than 24 hours later, Ava called me 12 times while I was on a date with Lily. And when I finally answered, crying filled the phone. "Noah," she sobbed, "please come. I really need you." I left the restaurant immediately. I had no idea that decision was about to start destroying a friendship that had lasted 6 years. I got to Ava's apartment in less than 15 minutes. I was expecting something serious. A car accident. A family emergency. Maybe she'd gotten fired. Instead, I found her sitting cross-legged on her couch in pajamas, surrounded by empty tissue boxes and half-melted ice cream. She looked up the second I walked in. "You came." "Of course I came," I said, still out of breath. "What happened?" Ava burst into tears. "Brandon broke up with me." I just stared. Brandon was her latest boyfriend. They'd been dating for 3 months. "Ava." "I know it sounds stupid," she said, wiping her eyes. "But he said I was emotionally unavailable. Can you believe that?" I sat down beside her automatically. For years, this had been our routine. Ava cried. I comforted her. Everything returned to normal. Only this time, something felt different. Maybe it was because Lily was sitting alone in a restaurant while I held another woman as she cried. Maybe it was because I'd left without even finishing dinner. Or maybe Lily's words were still bouncing around in my head. "She looks like she's waiting for you to choose her." I stayed for an hour. Then I checked my phone. 7 texts from Lily. None of them angry. Just concerned. "Everything okay? Is Ava all right? Do you need anything? Drive safe." The guilt hit me immediately. "I should probably go," I told Ava. Her face fell. "Already? It's almost 11. So? I left someone in the middle of dinner." Ava looked away. "Oh." The silence felt weird. "She's important to me, Ava." She gave a tiny smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, I can tell." The next few weeks were strange. At first, Ava acted completely supportive. She even texted Lily occasionally. But then the interruption started. If Lily and I had plans, Ava suddenly had a crisis. One night, Lily and I were halfway through a movie when my phone rang. "Ava." I ignored it. 30 seconds later, she called again, then again, then again. Lily looked over. "You should probably answer." I sighed and picked up. "Ava, what's wrong?" I locked myself out of my apartment. "Call maintenance." "They aren't answering." "Call your landlord." "I already did." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "What do you need from me?" "I was hoping you could come." I looked at Lily. She gave me a small smile. "Go." "No," I said immediately. "I'm not leaving again." There was silence on the other end. Then Ava said quietly, "Wow." "Ava." "It's fine. Forget I asked." She hung up. The next day, she barely answered my texts. That had never happened before. Then came the social media posts. Ava suddenly started posting things like, "Funny how people forget who was there before everyone else." Loyalty means nothing anymore. Some people change when they get into relationships. Mutual friends started messaging me. "Everything okay between you and Ava? Did you guys have a fight? Are you two not friends anymore?" One friend even texted, "Did you finally break up? Break up." I stared at that message for a solid minute. I showed Lily. She raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting. People have always assumed we're dating. Have they?" "Yeah." "How many people?" "Pretty much everyone." Lily set her phone down. "Noah, can I ask you something?" "Sure." Have you ever had a serious relationship last longer than 6 months? I opened my mouth, then closed it. No. And how many of those relationships existed while Ava was single? I frowned. Why does that matter? Just answer. I thought about it. None. Lily nodded slowly. I immediately became defensive. You're overthinking this. Maybe. But Ava and I are just friends. Lily smiled softly. Okay. For some reason, her agreeing bothered me more than if she'd argued. Things escalated 2 weeks later. Lily invited me to her friend's birthday party. I told Ava about it casually while we were getting coffee. Oh, she said. Sounds fun. It should be. Who's going? I listed a few names. Then she said, Cool. What time should I be there? I laughed. It's not really that kind of thing. What do you mean? It's Lily's friend's birthday. Ava blinked. So? I don't know these people very well either. She stared at me. You're seriously not inviting me? Ava, it's not my party. I'm your best friend. I know. You take me everywhere. I laughed nervously. Not everywhere. The look she gave me said otherwise. For the first time in our friendship, coffee ended awkwardly. The party was Saturday. Around an hour after Lily and I arrived, I felt someone tap my shoulder. I turned around and nearly dropped my drink. Ava stood there, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Her hair was different too, longer, curled. She looked incredible and completely out of place. Ava? I said. What are you doing here? She smiled. Surprise. How did you even know where this was? She shrugged. You mentioned the restaurant. Lily appeared beside me. For a second, the two of them just looked at each other. Then Ava smiled brightly. I hope you don't mind. I was bored. Lily was polite, as always. Of course. But the atmosphere shifted instantly. For the next 2 hours, Ava barely left my side. Whenever someone asked how Lily and I met, Ava answered for me. Whenever Lily tried telling a story, Ava interrupted with one about me. At one point, she actually linked her arm through mine and said, Sorry guys, I need to steal my favorite person. I saw Lily's expression. It wasn't jealousy. It was realization. On the drive home, neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, I said, I'm sorry. Lily looked surprised. For what? For tonight. She stared out the window. Do you know what the weirdest part is? What? I don't think she even realizes she's doing it. I frowned. What do you mean? I think she's genuinely convinced you belong to her. That irritated me. Ava doesn't think she owns me. Lily was quiet. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. Then why did she spend the entire night trying to prove she knows you better than I do? I didn't have an answer, because she was right. And deep down, I knew it. Things got worse after that. Much worse. A week later, Ava showed up at my apartment unannounced. Again. Only this time, Lily was there. Ava walked in carrying takeout like she owned the place. Then she froze. Lily was wearing one of my hoodies. The room went completely silent. Ava looked at the hoodie, then at me, then back at Lily. Oh, she said. Just one word. But something about the way she said it made me uneasy. The rest of the evening was painfully awkward, and as she was leaving, Ava hugged me tightly. Way tighter than normal. Then she whispered in my ear, Don't forget who was here first. I laughed awkwardly, but Lily heard it, and the look on her face told me she hadn't taken it as a joke. Neither had I. After Ava's comment about being there first, things changed. Not all at once. Slowly, like watching a crack spread across a windshield. You don't realize how bad it is until the whole thing shatters. At first, I convinced myself Lily was overthinking everything. Ava had always been intense. That was just who she was. But once I started paying attention, I couldn't stop noticing things. Like the fact that Ava never texted me when she was happily dating someone. Only when she was single. Or lonely. Or bored. I noticed that whenever I mentioned Lily, Ava immediately changed the subject back to herself. I noticed that she somehow always needed me most when Lily and I had plans, and I noticed something else. Every woman I'd seriously dated had disliked Ava. Every single one. I used to think that was because they were jealous. Now I wasn't so sure. The realization made me uncomfortable. So naturally, I ignored it. That strategy lasted exactly 8 days. I was at my apartment making dinner with Lily when my phone buzzed. Ava. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. Hey, what's up? Ava sounded panicked. Noah, I need you. My stomach dropped. What happened? I think my car's been stolen. What? I can't find it anywhere. Did you call the police? No, I called you. Lily looked up from the stove. I put the phone on speaker. When did you last see it? I asked. Last night. Did you check if it got towed? Silence. No. I closed my eyes. Ava. What? Call the towing company first. 20 minutes later, she texted. Never mind, LOL. It got towed. Lily looked at me. You realize that's the third emergency this month? It's just bad luck. Lily didn't argue. Again. For some reason, that bothered me. A few days later, I got another wake-up call. Literally. I woke up to 17 missed calls, all from Ava. The last voicemail had been left at 2:43 a.m. I listened immediately. Hey, don't freak out, but I think I made a mistake. My heart started racing. I may have accidentally kissed my ex. I blinked. That was it. That was the emergency. I called her. You called me 17 times because you kissed Brandon. Well, yeah. Ava, it was almost 3 in the morning. So? So why didn't you call one of your girlfriends? She went quiet. I wanted to talk to you. I almost said, you always want to talk to me. Instead, I just sighed. Later that day, Lily came over. I told her about the phone calls. She listened quietly. Then she asked, can I ask you something honestly? Sure. If you and Ava are siblings, I already knew where this was going. Lily? No, seriously. Imagine your actual sister called you 17 times because she kissed her ex. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because honestly, that would have been weird as hell. Lily sat beside me. I'm not asking you to stop being friends with her. Good. I'm asking you to set boundaries. I hated that word. Boundaries. It sounded harsh, cold, unnecessary. But Lily wasn't wrong. So that night I called Ava. Hey, I said. Can we talk? Of course. I think we need some boundaries. Silence. What kind of boundaries? Just, fewer late-night calls. Less showing up unannounced. Stuff like that. Another pause. Did Lily tell you to say this? No. Really? Yes. Because this sounds exactly like something she'd say. I took a breath. It's something I want too. That wasn't entirely true. I wanted peace. But I didn't know what peace looked like anymore. Ava laughed softly. I can't believe this. What? You've changed. I don't think I have. You have. Ava, no, it's fine. She sounded anything but fine. I guess people really do disappear when they get into relationships. That's not fair. Neither is being replaced. The word hit me hard. Replaced? You know what I mean. No, actually, I don't. She laughed bitterly. Forget it. Then she hung up. For the first time in 6 years, Ava ignored me for nearly a week. No texts, no memes, no random TikToks, nothing. And honestly, I missed her. But I also noticed something else. My relationship with Lily got easier, calmer, happier. I wasn't constantly checking my phone. I wasn't rushing to solve someone else's crisis. I wasn't emotionally exhausted. Lily noticed too. One night, while we were lying on the couch, she asked quietly, can I tell you something without you getting upset? Apparently that's your favorite sentence. She laughed. You seem lighter. That stuck with me. Lighter. I hadn't realized how heavy things had become. Then Ava came back, and she came back different. It started with Instagram. Suddenly she was posting constantly. Gym selfies, selfies in dresses, pictures with captions like, some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. Funny how fast people move on. Never compete for attention. If they wanted you, they'd choose you. Mutual friends started messaging me again. One of my friends, Jake, sent me a screenshot. Dude, did you and Ava date and not tell us? I called him immediately. What are you talking about? Jake sounded confused. Bro, everyone thinks you two broke up. What? I'm serious. People have been asking me for weeks. I laughed. Then I realized he wasn't joking. That same weekend, I ran into another friend at the gym. He asked, how's Ava handling the breakup? What breakup? The breakup. There wasn't a breakup. He looked genuinely confused. Dude, are you sure? I wish that had been the weirdest conversation I had that week. It wasn't. 3 nights later, Lily and I went to a mutual friend's housewarming party. Ava was there. The second we walked in, I knew something was wrong. Ava looked incredible, but not in her usual effortless way. This was deliberate. She dyed her hair darker. She was wearing a dress that turned heads instantly, and for some reason, she barely acknowledged Lily. Instead, she focused entirely on me. Every joke I made, she laughed too hard. Every story I told, she touched my arm. At one point, she actually sat on the armrest beside me and said, remember when everyone thought we were secretly in love? I nearly choked on my drink. Lily went very still. I laughed awkwardly. People were weird. Ava smiled. Maybe they weren't. I stared at her. What does that mean? She shrugged. Nothing. Later that night, after a few drinks, things got even stranger. A group of us were sitting around the fire pit when someone jokingly asked who would get married first. Without missing a beat, Ava pointed at me. Noah. Everyone looked at her. She smiled. He's husband material. Someone laughed. So why didn't you date him? The entire group went silent. For years, Ava had always answered that question instantly. He's like a brother. Gross. Absolutely not. This time, she took a sip of her drink. Then she said quietly, Maybe I should have. My heart stopped. Across the fire, Lily slowly lowered her cup. And for the first time in 6 years, I genuinely didn't know who Ava was anymore. The ride home from the housewarming party was painfully quiet. Lily stared out the passenger window while I replayed Ava's comment over and over in my head. Maybe I should have. Ava had never said anything remotely like that before. Not once. Finally, Lily broke the silence. So, I gripped the steering wheel tighter. So, you still think she sees you as a brother? I sighed. I don't know what to think anymore. Lily nodded slowly. That's fair. I glanced over. You were right. She looked surprised. About what? About Ava. Lily was quiet for a moment. I wish I wasn't. Neither of us said much after that, because honestly I didn't even know where to begin. The next morning I woke up to a text from Ava. Can we talk? Just us, please. I stared at the message for several minutes before replying. Sure. Coffee? She answered immediately. Same place as always. When I walked into the cafe, Ava was already there. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back. For the first time in years, she looked nervous around me. I sat down. Hey. Hey. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then Ava blurted out, I'm sorry if I've been weird. I blinked. Weird? She laughed weakly. Okay, weird is probably an understatement. I didn't disagree. She looked down at her coffee. I know things have changed. They have. And I know I've made comments I shouldn't have. I nodded. Yeah. She looked hurt by how quickly I answered. You're really serious about Lily, aren't you? The question caught me off guard. I thought about Lily's laugh, the way she remembered tiny details, how peaceful life felt with her, how safe. Yeah, I said softly. I am. Ava smiled, but her eyes filled with tears. That's what I was afraid of. Before I could respond, she stood up. I should go. Ava. It's fine. No, it's not. She shook her head. I just need some time. Then she left. I sat there feeling like I'd somehow done something wrong. Again. A week passed, then 2. Ava barely spoke to me. Mutual friends started asking questions. Again. One night I met up with my friend Jake to watch a game. Halfway through the second quarter, he casually asked, So, what's going on with you and Ava? I groaned. Nothing. Jake gave me a look. Dude. What? I've known you both for 6 years. So? So everyone saw this coming except you. I frowned. What does that mean? Jake looked genuinely confused. You seriously didn't know? My stomach tightened. Know what? Jake hesitated. Forget it. No, tell me. He shook his head. It's not my business. Jake. He sighed. Fine. He took a sip of his beer. A few years ago when you were dating Jenna? I immediately tensed. What about Jenna? Jake looked uncomfortable. I ran into her after you guys broke up. Okay. She told me Ava had called her. I stared at him. What? Apparently Ava reached out privately. The entire room suddenly felt smaller. What did she say? Jake hesitated. According to Jenna, Ava told her you still had feelings for an ex and weren't emotionally available. I felt sick. You're lying. I'm not. No. Bro, I swear. I stood up so fast my chair nearly fell over. Why are you just telling me this now? Jake looked frustrated. Because I thought you knew. I didn't. He sighed. Noah, there was something else. I slowly sat back down. What? Remember Sophie? My heart sank. Yeah. Jake rubbed the back of his neck. Sophie told my girlfriend that Ava warned her dating you was pointless because you'd always choose Ava in the end. I couldn't breathe. No, that couldn't be true. Could it? I drove straight home. The entire drive, I kept replaying every failed relationship I'd ever had. Sophie, Jenna, Rachel, Megan. How many of them had Ava talked to? How many breakups wasn't I actually responsible for? I called Jenna immediately. To my surprise, she answered. Noah? Hey. A pause. Wow, this is unexpected. I know. I took a shaky breath. I need to ask you something. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my car outside my apartment trying not to throw up. Because Jake had been right. Not only had Ava contacted Jenna behind my back, Jenna still had the messages. She sent me screenshots. My hands shook as I opened them. Hey girl, just wanted to give you a heads up. Noah is amazing, but he still struggles with letting people in. He tends to run back to old feelings when relationships get serious. Just don't get hurt, okay? Another message. Honestly, sometimes I think he dates because he doesn't want to be alone, not because he's actually ready. And then, he's my best friend, so obviously I'll support him no matter what. But you deserve the truth. I felt physically ill. Jenna had replied politely at first, but eventually she'd started doubting me, questioning me, pulling away. Because someone she thought she could trust had poisoned the relationship from the start. I immediately texted Sophie. She responded almost instantly. Yeah. Ava told me you always put her first and that girlfriends never lasted. Why? I stared at my phone. Then another message appeared. Wait, you didn't know she said that, did you? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I sat in my car for nearly an hour. 6 years. 6 years of friendship. 6 years of trust. And suddenly I didn't know what was real anymore. That night, I called Ava. She answered immediately. Hey, we need to talk. Something in my voice must have scared her. Okay. Tomorrow. Okay. I barely slept. The next evening, Ava came over. The second she walked into my apartment, she knew something was wrong. What's going on? I held up my phone. Did you tell Jenna I still had feelings for someone else? The color drained from her face. What? Did you? She looked away. That was answer enough. My chest tightened. Did you tell Sophie dating me was pointless? Silence. Ava? Still nothing. I couldn't believe it. You sabotaged my relationships. It's not like that. Then explain it. She looked panicked. I was trying to protect you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Protect me? Those girls weren't right for you. You don't get to decide that. I know. No, clearly you don't. She started crying. I was just looking out for you. By lying to people I cared about? I didn't lie. I stared at her. Are you hearing yourself right now? She wiped her eyes furiously. You always choose the wrong people. I felt something inside me finally snap. You mean people who weren't you? Ava froze. The room went completely silent. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then, suddenly, she exploded. Because I loved you, okay? Is that what you wanted to hear? Everything stopped. I stared at her. She stared back, breathing hard. Tears streamed down her face. I loved you, she whispered again. I've loved you for years. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't even process what I had just heard. Because the girl who had called me her brother for 6 years, the girl who had rejected me, the girl who had dated countless other men while I sat on the sidelines, was standing in my living room telling me she'd loved me all along. And somehow, I had a horrible feeling that this wasn't even the whole truth. For a solid 10 seconds, I couldn't speak. I just stared at Ava. She was crying, breathing hard, like she'd been holding those words in for years. Say something, she whispered. I laughed, not because anything was funny, because my brain genuinely didn't know what else to do. You loved me? She nodded. I shook my head immediately. No? Ava looked stunned. What? No, you don't get to say that. Tears filled her eyes. It's true. How? I snapped. How is it true? I just told you. You rejected me. The words echoed through my apartment. You rejected me, Ava. I literally told you I liked you and you called me your brother. She flinched. You hugged me and told me I was family. I know. You watched me date other people. I know. You listened to me talk about women I cared about. I know. Then don't stand here and tell me you loved me this whole time. She started crying harder. I didn't know what I wanted back then. I stared at her. Are you serious? I was 19. So was I. I was scared. Of what? Of losing you. I let out another disbelieving laugh. So your solution was to reject me and keep me around forever? She looked away. The fact that she couldn't answer terrified me. Oh my God. Noah. Oh my God. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. She wiped at her face. I thought we had time. I froze. What? She swallowed hard. I thought, eventually. Eventually. I hated that word instantly. Eventually what? She looked at the floor. I thought we'd find our way back to each other. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You thought I'd just... wait? No. I laughed bitterly. That's exactly what you thought. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because she knew. I knew. We both knew. She had assumed I'd always be there. No matter what. No matter who she dated. No matter how many times she chose someone else. No matter how long it took. She thought I was permanent. A backup plan with a pulse. You knew I loved you, I said quietly. She nodded. I felt sick. And you still dated other people. I thought I needed to experience life. I stared at her. You needed to experience life. She started crying again. I didn't know we'd end up here. You mean you didn't know I'd finally move on? That's not fair. No, Ava. You know what's not fair? I took a shaky breath. I spent years wondering why I wasn't enough. She looked like I'd slapped her. You don't mean that. I do. Noah. I spent years thinking there was something wrong with me because every time I got close to someone, something happened. I stepped closer. And now I find out you were behind some of it. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. I know. You sabotaged my relationships. I know. You lied. I know. You manipulated people. I know. Every answer was the same. I know, I know, I know. And somehow that made it worse. Because she understood exactly what she'd done. She just didn't think there would be consequences. Finally, she whispered, I thought you'd always be here. There it was. The truth. Simple. Brutal. Honest. I closed my eyes. Because somehow that hurt more than the confession. Not, I loved you. Not, I was scared. Not, I made mistakes. No. The thing that shattered me was, I thought you'd always be here. I looked at her. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't see my best friend. I saw someone who had loved being loved. Someone who wanted all the benefits of having me without ever choosing me. Someone who wanted me close enough that nobody else could have me, but not close enough to commit to me herself. I felt my chest tighten. You don't love me. Her head snapped up. What? You love knowing I'd always choose you. Tears spilled down her face. That's not true. Isn't it? It isn't. Then why now? She froze. I kept going. Why didn't you tell me 3 years ago, or 4, or 5? I was scared. No, why now? Silence. I swallowed hard. Because I'm with Lily. She didn't answer. Because for the first time in 6 years, I stopped revolving my entire life around you. Noah, please. And suddenly that's when you realized you loved me? I've always loved you. Then why didn't you choose me? She looked absolutely broken. I thought there would be more time. I nodded slowly, and somehow that hurt even more. Because she really believed it. She thought I would wait forever. She thought I would always answer the phone, always show up, always put her first, always be there. She never imagined I'd leave. You're not seriously ending our friendship over this? She whispered. I looked at her, and that's when I realized something terrifying. She still didn't understand. She still thought this was just a fight, something we'd get through, because we always did. I took a deep breath. I'm not ending our friendship because you loved me. She looked hopeful for a second. Then I continued. I'm ending it because you didn't. She frowned. What? You loved having me. Tears rolled down her face. You loved knowing I was there. I shook my head. But you didn't love me enough to choose me when you had the chance. She looked completely shattered. And now that I finally chose someone who chooses me back, you can't stand it. The room went silent. Ava started sobbing. Noah, please don't do this. I felt tears sting my own eyes. I need you. The words almost broke me. Because 6 months earlier, they would have worked. 6 months earlier, I would have hugged her, comforted her, promised everything would be okay. But now? Now I finally understood. I wasn't her first choice. I was her safety net, and I deserved more than that. I took a shaky breath. I think you need to leave. She stared at me. No. Ava. No. I closed my eyes. Please. She started crying harder. You can't just walk away from 6 years. I looked at her sadly. No. I opened the door. But you can spend 6 years assuming someone will wait for you, and still lose them anyway. She looked at me for a long time. Then, without another word, she walked out. The door closed. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't run after her. 3 months after I blocked Ava, life finally started feeling normal again. Not perfect, just peaceful. Lily and I were doing great. For the first time in years, I wasn't constantly glued to my phone waiting for someone else's emergency. I wasn't canceling plans. I wasn't playing therapist. I wasn't carrying the emotional weight of another person's life on my shoulders. It felt strange at first. Then it felt incredible. There were still moments when I'd instinctively reach for my phone to send Ava a meme or tell her something funny that had happened at work. Those moments hurt. 6 years of friendship doesn't disappear overnight. But every week got a little easier. Then Jake got engaged. Naturally, our entire friend group ended up at his engagement party. I almost didn't go. There was a decent chance Ava would be there. Jake assured me she wasn't coming. So Lily and I went. The night was honestly amazing. Everyone loved Lily. My friends had gotten close to her over the past few months, and seeing her fit so naturally into my life made me realize how much I'd missed out on in previous relationships. Around 10 o'clock, I was standing by the grill talking with a few friends when my friend Sarah walked over. Sarah had known Ava even longer than I had. She hugged me. It's really good to see you happy again. I smiled. Thanks. She hesitated. Then she said, Can I ask you something? Sure. Have you talked to Ava at all? I shook my head. No. Sarah sighed. She's not doing well. I immediately felt guilty. Then I remembered everything that had happened. That's unfortunate. Sarah gave me a look. You're still angry. I laughed. You think? Fair. There was an awkward pause. Then Sarah said something that changed everything. I honestly thought you two would have figured it out years ago. I frowned. What does that mean? Sarah looked confused. No, I don't know. She looked around nervously. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. My stomach dropped. Sarah. She sighed. Oh God. What? You really don't know. Know what? Sarah looked genuinely horrified. I thought someone told you. Told me what? She sat down across from me. Noah, do you remember when you confessed your feelings to Ava in college? Of course I remembered. How could I forget? Yeah. Sarah slowly nodded. Ava came to my apartment afterward. I stared at her. Okay. She cried for hours. I frowned. Because she felt bad for rejecting me? Sarah looked away. No. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Then why? Sarah took a deep breath. Because she was in love with you too. I just stared at her. No. I'm serious. No. She told me she loved you. I shook my head immediately. That's impossible. It isn't. Sarah, she rejected me. I know. She called me her brother. I know. She dated other people. Sarah looked sad. I know. I couldn't breathe. What are you saying? Sarah hesitated. Then she said the words that shattered whatever was left of my understanding of the past 6 years. She told several of us that she was rejecting you on purpose. The world seemed to tilt. What? She said she wasn't ready. I couldn't speak. Sarah continued quietly. She said dating you was too risky. I laughed. A broken, disbelieving laugh. So instead, she sabotaged every relationship I ever had? Sarah winced. She didn't say that part. I stood up. No. Explain this to me. Sarah looked miserable. She said she knew you'd always be there. I felt physically sick. You're lying. I'm not. Why would anyone do that? Sarah's eyes filled with sympathy. Because she was 20 and stupid. I sank back into my chair. Sarah continued softly. She said she wanted to date around first. I closed my eyes. No. She said she didn't want to settle down without experiencing life. Every word felt like another punch. She thought... Sarah hesitated. What? She thought when she was finally ready, you'd still be waiting. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Because suddenly everything made sense. The possessiveness, the jealousy, the sabotage, the confidence, the certainty that I'd never leave. Ava hadn't rejected me because she didn't want me. She rejected me because she thought she had unlimited time. She thought she could keep me safely on a shelf while she figured out whether there was someone better out there. And if there wasn't, I'd still be there. Waiting. I excused myself and walked outside. A few minutes later, Lily joined me. You okay? I laughed weakly. Not really. I told her everything. Every single word Sarah had said. Lily listened quietly. When I finished, she wrapped her arms around me. I'm so sorry. I stared out into the darkness. I wasted years. No, you didn't. I did. You loved someone who treated me like a backup plan. Lily didn't argue, because she couldn't. That's exactly what it had been. I thought back to every canceled date, every midnight phone call, every breakup, every time I'd put my own life on hold because Ava needed me. And I realized something. I hadn't just lost relationships. I'd lost years. Years I could have spent building something real with someone who actually chose me. Someone who didn't keep me in reserve. Someone who didn't need to compare me against everyone else before deciding I was enough. Someone like Lily. A week later, I got a letter. An actual handwritten letter. No return address. I knew immediately who it was from. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. It was 10 pages long. Ava apologized. For everything. She admitted she had loved me for years. She admitted she'd been selfish. She admitted she'd convinced herself I'd always be there. One sentence hit me harder than the rest. I think I loved being loved by you so much that I forgot you deserved to be loved back the same way. I cried reading that. Then I put the letter away, and I never responded. Because loving someone isn't enough. Timing matters. Choices matter. And 6 years of choices had already been made. Last month, Lily and I celebrated our 2-year anniversary. As we sat across from each other at dinner, laughing about something stupid, I realized something. Real love doesn't make you compete. It doesn't keep you waiting. It doesn't put you on layaway while it shops for other options. Ava called me family for years because family doesn't leave. But the second I stopped acting like I belonged to her, she realized she had mistaken unconditional loyalty for guaranteed access. And by then, it was too late. Because if someone truly wants you, they don't put you on standby while they search for something better. They choose you before they have the chance to lose you. I thought that was the end of the story. Honestly, I wanted it to be. Life moved on. Lily and I moved in together. Jake got married. A few friends had kids. People changed jobs, moved cities, started entirely new lives. The older I got, the more I realized that adulthood is basically a series of people either growing with you or growing away from you. Ava and I had simply grown apart. At least that's what I told myself. Then, almost 3 years after I blocked her, I saw her again. I was at the grocery store on a random Tuesday evening. I was standing in the cereal aisle debating whether buying the giant family-size box was irresponsible when I heard someone say my name. Noah? I turned around, and there she was. Ava. For a second, neither of us moved. She looked different, not dramatically, just older, calmer, less chaotic. The strange thing was that she looked exactly like someone I'd once known incredibly well and simultaneously like a complete stranger. "Hey," I said. "Hey." There was an awkward silence. Then she smiled nervously. "You look good. So do you." Another silence. Neither of us knew what to do with ourselves. Finally, she glanced down and laughed softly. "This is weird." "Yeah. How have you been?" "Good." And for once I meant it. "Really good." She nodded. "I'm glad." I noticed she wasn't wearing a ring. I immediately hated that I'd noticed. Old habits die hard, I guess. She looked like she wanted to say something else. Eventually she asked, "Are you still with Lily?" I smiled without even thinking. "Yeah." Ava smiled too. A real smile. "She always seemed good for you." I laughed quietly. "She is." Ava looked down. "I'm happy for you." For the first time in years, I believed her. We talked for maybe 5 more minutes. Work, friends, life, nothing deep, nothing emotional. Then she shifted the basket in her hands. "I should probably go." "Yeah, me too." She started to walk away. Then she stopped. Without turning around, she said, "For what it's worth, losing you taught me a lot." I didn't know what to say, so I told the truth. "Losing you taught me a lot too." She nodded once. Then she left. And that was it. No dramatic reunion. No secret confession. No last-minute second chance. Just two people who had once meant everything to each other and now meant almost nothing. I got back into my car and sat there for a minute. Years earlier, seeing Ava walk away would have destroyed me. This time, I simply started the engine and drove home. Because home wasn't wherever Ava was anymore. Home was Lily, waiting for me on the couch, stealing fries off my plate and asking me how my day went. And as I pulled into our driveway, I realized something. Some people come into your life to be your future. Others come into your life to teach you what you should never settle for. Ava was both. And that's okay, because sometimes the person you can't imagine living without is only there to make sure you recognize the person you actually can't live without when they finally arrive.